Why does Cowboys coaching news keep exploding, and what is Christian Parker really changing behind the scenes? Reports suggest big structural shifts are already underway, and now there's growing buzz that Lunda Wells could be gone, catching fans off guard. Some believe Parker is finally asserting real authority and modernizing the staff, while others worry Dallas is moving too fast and creating instability. What roles are being reshaped, and who's next on the chopping block? One behind-the-scenes detail tied to Parker's vision hints this coaching overhaul is far from over and it could redefine the Cowboys' identity. Cowboys coaching news keeps unrolling in, big changes under Christian Parker plus Lunda Wells gone. Man, just when you think the Cowboys coaching carousel might finally slow down, here we are again, because the news just does not stop with this team. Every single day it feels like something new is leaking out of the star, and now we've got major questions, major changes, and some very real uncertainty surrounding this coaching staff under Christian Parker. And on top of that, there's one name that Cowboys fans are suddenly asking about everywhere: Lunda Wells. Is he gone? Is he on the way out? Or is this another quiet reshuffling that the Cowboys love to do behind the scenes? Let's talk about it, because there is a lot to unpack here, and I promise you this is bigger than it looks on the surface. First things first, Christian Parker. Ever since his role started expanding within the organization, you could feel this shift coming. This is not just the same old Cowboys coaching staff anymore. There's a very clear attempt happening right now to modernize, to streamline, and honestly, to reset the culture defensively and organizationally. Whether that works or not is still up for debate, but one thing is obvious: change is happening fast. What's interesting is how quietly some of these changes are being made. This isn't Jerry Jones holding a big press conference every 5 minutes. This isn't Stephen Jones hyping everything up with buzzwords. This feels more surgical. Coaches being reassigned. Responsibilities being adjusted. Some people staying but losing influence. Others gaining power quickly. That's usually the sign of someone who wants to put their own stamp on the building. And Christian Parker is absolutely doing that. When Parker first started getting more responsibility, a lot of fans kind of brushed it off. They thought, okay, this is just another internal promotion, another Cowboys we like our guys move. But the more you dig into it, the more you realize this is different. Parker isn't just being handed a title. He's being given real authority, especially when it comes to how players are coached, how schemes are taught, and how accountability is handled on defense. And that's where things get uncomfortable for some people. Because when new leadership comes in, even internal leadership, it creates friction. People who were comfortable before suddenly aren't. Longtime assistants who had security now have to justify their role again. And that's exactly why names like Lunda Wells are suddenly being brought up in conversations. Now let's talk about Lunda Wells, because this is where Cowboys fans are split right down the middle. For a long time, Wells has been seen as one of those glue guys. Not necessarily the flashiest coach, not the loudest voice in the room, but someone players respected, someone who knew the system, someone who had been around long enough to understand how the Cowboys operate. Especially with tight ends, development, and player relationships, Wells had carved out a solid reputation. So when whispers started circulating that Lunda Wells might be gone, or at least on shaky ground, people were confused. Why him? Why now? Well, here's the thing. This isn't always about good or bad coaching. A lot of times it's about fit. It's about philosophy. It's about whether a coach aligns with where the team wants to go next. And from what we're hearing, Christian Parker is pushing for a more aggressive, detail-oriented, no-nonsense approach across the board. That means practice habits. That means accountability. That means technique over comfort. And if a coach doesn't fully align with that vision, even if they're respected, even if they're liked, they can be vulnerable. That's the brutal side of the NFL. And this is where Cowboys fans need to be honest with themselves. For years, we've complained about stagnation. We've complained about the same voices, the same mistakes, the same lack of discipline in big moments. Well, this is what real change looks like. It's uncomfortable. It involves people leaving. It involves uncertainty. Now, does that mean Lunda Wells is 100% gone? Not necessarily. The Cowboys are notorious for letting things play out quietly before anything is official. Sometimes a coach leaves but really transitions into a different role. Sometimes contracts expire and they don't renew. Sometimes a coach sees the writing on the wall and takes another opportunity elsewhere. But the fact that his name is even coming up tells you something. It tells you the staff is being evaluated top to bottom. And that brings us back to Christian Parker again. Parker's influence seems to be growing not just on paper, but in how decisions are being made. Defensive philosophies are being reviewed. Player usage is being questioned. Development plans are being rewritten. This is not a passive role. This is active leadership. One of the biggest criticisms of the Cowboys over the last few seasons has been that they look unprepared when things go wrong. When Plan A fails, there's no Plan B. When teams adjust, Dallas struggles to counter. That's a coaching issue. And it looks like Parker understands that. There's also a strong push toward flexibility. Positionless concepts. Players learning multiple roles. Teaching defenders how to think, not just react. That requires a very specific type of coach. Not everyone can do that effectively. So if you're a coach who's more old school, more rigid, more comfortable teaching things one way, you might not survive this shift. And again, that doesn't make you a bad coach. It just means the Cowboys are moving in a different direction. What's fascinating is how this all ties into the bigger picture of the Cowboys' future. This isn't just about 2026. This feels like groundwork being laid for the next era of Cowboys football. Younger coaches. New ideas. Less loyalty to tenure, more focus on results and alignment. That's something we haven't seen consistently in Dallas. Christian Parker represents that different. Now, let's talk about what this could mean on the field, because coaching changes aren't just background noise. They affect everything. How players are rotated. Who gets snaps. How mistakes are handled. How confidence is built or destroyed. If Parker has more control, expect to see defenders being challenged more mentally. Expect tighter roles but more responsibility within those roles. Expect less tolerance for freelancing unless it's earned. That could be great for some players. It could be bad for others. And if Lunda Wells is indeed out or on his way out, that opens the door for new blood. New voices. Maybe even coaches from outside the Cowboys' usual hiring tree. And that's something fans have been begging for. But it also raises questions. Who replaces that experience? Who bridges the gap between players and staff? Who keeps the locker room steady during rough patches? Those are things you don't see on a stat sheet. This is why these coaching moves matter so much more than people realize. They shape the culture. They shape the identity. And right now, the Cowboys are clearly trying to redefine both. Another layer to this is how players are reacting behind the scenes. When coaches change, players notice immediately. Some get excited. Some get anxious. Some start wondering about their own future. That can either energize a team or create tension. And from what's been hinted at, the message being delivered is very direct. Earn it or lose it. Nothing is guaranteed. That's a big shift for a franchise that's often been accused of being too comfortable. Now, does this guarantee success? Absolutely not. But it does signal intent. And intent matters. The next few weeks are going to be huge. If Lunda Wells officially moves on, pay close attention to who comes in. That hire will tell us everything about what Christian Parker truly wants. If it's another internal promotion, that says one thing. If it's an outside, aggressive, forward-thinking coach, that says something very different. Either way, the Cowboys coaching staff is not settled yet. This is still in motion. And that's why the news keeps rolling in. Cowboys fans, love it or hate it, you're watching a franchise in transition. This is not the same structure we've seen for years. This is not business as usual. And whether it leads to something great or another frustrating chapter, we're about to find out. Now I want to hear from you. How do you feel about Christian Parker having this much influence? Are you worried about losing experienced coaches like Lunda Wells, or are you ready for a full reset? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is far from over. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want daily Cowboys updates, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. The Cowboys coaching saga is just getting started and we'll be covering every single twist along the way. Trust me, more news is coming.